Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So how many of you know about PCOS basically?
The polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's it. Anything else?
It's because of imbalances in the hormone.
Hmm.
It is the one of the most prevalent diseases among the s- women, especially the school children or teenagers.
Right, right. That's good. Anybody else want to try?
And if one or two symptoms combined, it will lead known as, I think, a PCOS.
Amazing, Manju.
Yeah,
You're
ma'am.
on a bank. Yeah. Right, right. That's good. That's good. Anybody wants? Anybody wants to try? Okay, so let's quickly get into the session. So myself, Revati Prasad, I am from Chennai, and I've been with holistic nutrition training program for past 1+ year. And PCOS is like my favorite field. I mean, that journal. I've been working with PCOS clients mostly because my work experience is most of like I always handle a lot of women clients, and especially I used to handle PCOS and thyroid. So today I thought, like, let me share my experience about PCOS. So a bit of clinical aspect and a more of holistic aspect. And so yeah, let's get started. See, as Manju said, PCOS is it is to do with a lot of hormones. Okay, so this hormone, what it says, it is a chemical messenger that actually connects our brain to our body. Okay, so these hormones helps to communicate what our brain says to our body. So these are simple chemical messengers, and of course, every hormones has to be within the set range. So every hormones has got its normal range within which it has to settle. If something is too much or too little, then there ends up having a hormone imbalance, which becomes the first cause or first trigger to end up having this PCOS. So now, before going into it, we need to know basics, like, what are the exact hormones which is involved in this PCOS or for a normal menstrual health. And then we need to find out like which goes a haywire, which causes this PCOS or that hormone imbalance. Okay. So basically we have 5 hormones, which is very, very important in terms of regularizing or the menstrual cycle or to maintain that homeostasis. So first thing is like FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. So as the name goes, it stimulates the follicle. So it makes the follicle to grow, it stimulates. Okay, and this FSH is being produced by the pituitary gland. Okay, and next is the LH, the luteinizing hormone, and this hormone helps the matured hormone to rupture, and then the release of egg happens. Okay, both these LH and FSH is being released by the pituitary gland. And now comes the other hormones like estrogen and progesterone. So this estrogen is being synthesized by the ovaries. It is not from the brain, it is from the local area. So the ovaries produce this, and the progesterone is being produced by corpus luteum. So what is the purpose of estrogen? It is responsible for our feminine quality. So it is responsible for our secondary sexual development. So, and progesterone, as the name goes, it helps in gestation. Suppose a woman plans for a pregnancy, then the progesterone takes over and helps to protect the pregnancy. And insulin, everybody knows that it plays a very important role in sugar metabolism. But what is the role it is been playing in the menstrual health? That will be seen, in upcoming slides. Am I too fast?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So now, before getting into the PCOS, let's understand the basics of menstrual cycle. Okay, so this menstrual cycle, there are three things happening. One, from the pituitary gland, from the brain, there's a command coming to the ovaries. Second, there is something happening in the ovaries, and third, something happening in the uterus. Okay, so now, first, so the days are mentioned in the below. So you can just see day 1 to day 5. Okay, so you can see that FSH, or day 3, I can say the FSH is little on the higher end. Okay, so what happens is, first 3 days of the menstrual cycle, your follicle stimulating hormone is on the higher end. Okay, and luteinizing hormone is also there, but these FSH and LH, you can see the graph saying that LH is always little high compared to FSH. This is a normal cycle, I mean normal level of hormones being maintained. This is one you need to understand. So LH is always little higher compared to FSH. And what happens in the ovary? So in the ovary, when the FSH is on the little higher end, so it develops the follicle, it makes the follicle mature. Okay, and exactly on the 14th day, if the cycle is for 28-day cycle, say for example a woman is getting every 28 days once a cycle, so exactly the midpoint, the 14th day, the ovulation happens. What is meant by ovulation? It is just the release of the egg from the matured follicle, for which the LH plays a major role. Okay, so this happens in the ovary. Got it? So now what happens in the ovary, the estrogen and progesterone is being secreted, and the estrogen will take its higher or the upper hand on the first 14 to 15 days, post which the progesterone will take over, believing that once the egg is released into the uterus from the ovary, progesterone thinks like, there might be a fertilization happening, so I need to protect that embryo. So the progesterone takes over, but it waits for some 3 to 4 days whether the fertilization is happening or not. The moment it senses that no fertilization happened, then the progesterone drops and the estrogen again takes over. This happens in the ovary. Now in the uterus, what happens is, the first 3 days of the cycle, the endometrium lining start peeling down. Okay, and after that, so generally the cycle lasts from average 3 to 5 days, even for some people it is 7 days. So till then the endometrium keeps shredding down. After the ovulation is done, then slowly again the endometrium lines up, because it is expecting that the ovulation, the fertilization may happen, so it is preparing the uterus for like a cushion, so that it protects the pregnancy. So the endometrium lining takes over. Okay, so there are two things you have to understand simultaneously. One is changes happening in the ovary, another thing is changes happening in the uterus. Okay, so once the egg is not fertilized, then it develops into corpus luteum, and this corpus luteum, when the egg is fertilized, it becomes like a corpus luteum, and the corpus luteum releases progesterone to protect the pregnancy. And if there is no fertilization happen, there's no corpus luteum, so the corpus luteum starts shrinking down, and the progesterone level falls down. Got it? So next, we'll see what is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So as Manju said, there is two things, PCOD and PCOS. What's the difference? Very simple. PCOD means polycystic ovarian disease or disorder, we can say. So in this, there will be only one symptom. So the listed symptoms will be like, it could be irregular cycles, or the client will be, having a, the scan report, which shows that there are so many cysts in the ovaries, or the client may present with hirsutism. Hirsutism is nothing but extra bodily hair or facial hair, that male pattern kind of thing. They will look like more of like men. They will have male pattern baldness, hair loss, all those stuff. Acne will be there, weight gain in some cases. In some cases, you can see acanthosis nigricans, which is the black patch or the skin discoloration, behind the neck, or sometimes even the armpit. And we also call it as insulin resistance. That is one of a very unique symptom. The insulin resistance will be there, and there might be even other hormone imbalances. So these are all the symptoms which we commonly see in PCOS. So PCOD means any one symptom will be present in that client. If it is one symptom, then we conclude it as PCOD. If there are two or more symptoms the client is presented with, then we address it as PCOS. Okay, so these symptoms are very important when a client comes to you. If you feel like, just generally ask, any female client comes, just ask how is their menstrual health, like are they getting their cycles. Some the unfortunate thing is, like, most of the women, they don't even know that they are suffering with this. Okay, because hardly women keep memory of their menstrual cycle dates. Okay, I've been going through a lot of things, especially with the college girls. They are not even aware when they are getting their cycle, so they will not be aware of all these symptoms. So you have to ask these things. So now, based upon these symptoms, there are lots of types of PCOS. Okay, so depending on the symptoms, PCOS are being classified, and you as a dietitian, as a holistic coach, we should first of all know that what kind of PCOS is my client suffering from, because every type of PCOS, the diet patterns changes, the way you need to handle them is completely different. So it all depends upon how you diagnose what type of PCOS they are suffering from. So now coming to the symptoms. So as I told, there are the classic symptom of PCOS could be these three symptoms. One, the client may present with a scan report showing that there are so many cysts in the ovary. This is one. And the client will say, like, ma'am, I'm not getting my cycles regularly, the missed cycle, or they are not getting their cycles. This is two. And third thing is like having that male pattern, or the extra facial hair, acne, all these things. So these three symptoms are very classic, and if all three are there, then it is PCOS for sure. So as I told you earlier, two or more symptoms together, it is termed as PCOS. So now we need to know what kind of client we are handling. So we need to know the types, right? So we need to check. Now, if the client is saying that she has got a scan report saying that she has got so many cysts in the ovary, plus she's saying like, I'm not getting my cycles regularly, but the male pattern is absent, means she doesn't have that extra facial hair or bodily hair, all that, male pattern kind of thing, then this type of PCOS, we term it as non-hirsute. Okay, so non-hirsute, there is no higher level of androgen. The male hormone is not that high. So these two are the symptoms, and that's how you classify them as non-hirsute. Now, if the client says she has got the cyst in the ovary and she's getting her cycles regularly, and she's having this facial hair, extra bodily hair, acne, all these male pattern things, then we term it as ovulatory PCOS. People think PCOS means they don't get their cycles regularly. No, even regular cycles are possible, still suffering with PCOS. Okay, the ovulation will be happening, but there will be some hormone imbalances which causes this too much of cyst in the ovary, or they will have this male pattern. So now the final type. So majority we see these three types. There are still more types of PCOS, but to make it very short, let me not overwhelm, so I thought I'll stop here. So the classic PCOS is simple. In the scan report, there will be no cyst form. Okay, but the women will not get her cycles regularly, and she will have this male pattern. This is classic PCOS. Okay, so now as a dietitian, when a client comes to you saying that some problem with her menstrual health, you have to really assess where she is going wrong, and you need to know what hormones plays what function, or which hormone is causing all this trouble. So next slide will help.
Could you repeat the classic PCOS?
The classic PCOS, the client will not establish her like she's having cyst in her ovaries. There will be no cyst. The scan report says like she's absolutely fine, but she will not get a cycle, but at the same time she will have that male pattern.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
So now you need to really understand if this symptom is existing, then what kind of hormone will be making that trouble. So you really need to know, right? Say for example, if a client comes to you with one single symptom telling that she is having this polycystic ovary and she's getting a cycles and she doesn't have a male pattern. So you should definitely immediately know which hormone is playing the role. So in this case, it will be estrogen. Suppose if a client comes to you with a polycyst report in a scan, so immediately you have that, inference that she's having, she's producing too much of estrogen, and that makes her, a ovary with more of cyst. Suppose if the client says like, I've got too much of this hair, too much of acne, then it is because of the increased male hormone, androgen. Okay. And if she's missing the periods is not happening regularly, then it says that there is a decrease in follicle stimulating hormone. Since because there's not enough FSH, the egg is not becoming mature. Only if it mature, then the LH can act. The problem is it is not happening in this case. So she is actually having a decreased FSH. So these three hormones you really need to know. So now from here, as a clinical dietitian, what you need to do is you have to find out what would be the reason for excess estrogen production, or what would be the reason for increased androgen, or what could be the reason for decreased FSH. So you need to first find out the trigger, and then we need to work with a diet which helps to manage this estrogen, and it helps to make the progesterone almost equal. Like, estrogen and progesterone like inversely proportional. If estrogen is high, then progesterone will be low. And if progesterone is high, then estrogen will be low. But in this case, the dominance means estrogen is produced too much that the progesterone is very, very little. Okay. So you need to know which food will help you cut down this estrogen, which food will help you cut down this male hormones which is being produced. So now, let's see if the client is coming up with this polycystic, and you need to know where this estrogen is being produced. So you need to know the source, right? Only then you can cut down. Now come the role of insulin here. So the estrogen production, it is actually happening in two ways. Like you get either from external source and another is internal source. In internal source, what happens is if the client is having more of testosterone, that testosterone is a precursor for estrogen. So what happens, more testosterone, then it gets converted as estrogen. This is one source. The next source is the adipose tissue. So this adipose tissue, it is capable of producing more and more estrogen. Now, where does the adipose tissue comes from? So imagine if a client is very heavy, the weight, she's like obese or overweight. The moment you see the client, you come to know that, okay, this woman is having more of fat. What happens? So if a client is physically inactive and she's eating anyway, see, whatever, either we work or not, we keep eating all three meals, right? All the meals, the snacks and everything. And what happens is the moment she eats the food, morning breakfast, she would have taken no physical activity. The cells are full with glucose. Again, she's taking her lunch. Now the lunch sugar, it has entered the bloodstream and it is waiting for it to enter into the cells. But unfortunately, the cells are already full with glucose because there's no physical activity happened. So now what happens? Excess glucose in the blood sugar sends a signal to brain, and the brain sends a signal to pancreas asking to produce more insulin. Okay. So now the insulin comes for rescue. So it comes and it keeps knocking each and every cell to open so that it can pull this glucose, blood glucose into the cell. It can push it into the cell. But unfortunately, the cells are already full. It is saying, boss, sorry, it is house full. So what happens? The sugar is still there in the blood and the insulin is still keep on coming because for it, there is no negative feedback getting in. because the sugars are still high and the insulin also keep on pumping. The pancreas is sending so much of insulin. Now it turns up into hyperinsulinemia. On a long run, it becomes an insulin resistant pattern. But body is very smart. It has to take care of the blood sugar level. So what happens is the excess sugar in the blood gets converted as fat. It will be stored as fat. And now this is a source for adipose tissue. So once the adipose tissue is there is n number of, there is no end, never ending process for the estrogen production. So that's how the client becomes more estrogen dominant, and she actually makes it more worse the case. So now what are the external estrogen source? Any idea? Anybody know from where you get the estrogen from? Anybody?
Maybe the sources of omega fatty acid, that is seeds. Any food sources? Seeds.
Okay. Then
Phytoestrogen.
okay. So where do you get the phytoestrogen from?
Soya products.
Okay. But do you think most of the women has more soya product in their diet? No? Okay. So here is your answer. So you get the maximum estrogen, which we call it as zero estrogen, from all these cosmetics, these perfumes, these soaps. Every time whenever you use such products on your skin, the skin takes in. And these zero estrogen mimics like estrogen. It goes, enters the body. The moment it enters the bloodstream, it acts like estrogen. And these are all the surface level thing. The through food, what happens is like excessive colors, excessive preservatives or additives, especially the colored one. And when I was actually working on it, I was even surprised. Too much of chlorine in drinking water, or it could be even using for the surface thing, like the for bathing or whatever it is. Too much of chlorine acts as a zero estrogen. And this junk, the heavy calorie food or the refined foods, because as I explained you in the previous slide, too much of sugar rich food, if there is no physical activity, it is going to get converted as fat, the adipose tissue. From there you get the enough estrogen. So from there they become more estrogen dominant. So now what are the other things? So we saw about the cyst. Now let's see the this thing, the missed cycle or irregular cycle. So I already told you there is a decreased FSH and increased LH. So what happened if there is decreased follicle stimulating hormone? There is no eggs released because the eggs are not getting mature, and there's no cycle eventually. Only if the eggs are released, then the cycle happens. If the first step is gone, then it's not happening. And now coming to the hair facial thing, the male pattern, increased testosterone. So more of male hormone synthesized, then the client experience the male physical pattern. Okay, are you clear? Am I too fast? Just stop me if I'm fast. Okay, so now my favorite part. So all this time I was talking about about the clinical thing. So now I will talk about the cases, and then we'll dive into the Q&A. See, this is my first case after joining my HNTP, and as a holistic coach, I was able to help her reverse her PCOS. So quickly into the case, she's a 32-year-old woman, and she's been married since 11 years, and she's from a proper Brahmin family, Orthodox, they are very strict in following the religious thing. And she came to me. So when she came to me, her BMI was 36.9. She's morbid obese, and she had this history of PCOD since 2005. And she told me, when she came her presenting complaints were like she had high prolactin, high insulin, and high testosterone levels. And she used to get her cycles for 45 to 60 days once. Okay. And she generally used to get her cycles only on medication, but when she joined me, she told she didn't take any medication because she wants to reverse it without medication. And when she joined, she didn't get a cycle for past 3 to 4 months, I guess. So I'm not talking much about the 24-hour recall or quantity quality, not the clinical aspect. It is exclusively the holistic aspect. So in holistic, we actually address the 7 areas, which is very important to reverse any kind of disorder. So the 7 areas include this physical health, personal, vocational health, social health, financial health, psycho-emotional health, and spiritual health. So coming to the physical health, obviously her diet was not balanced and she wasn't moving much. She was like almost leading a very sedentary life. And personal life, she had some issues with parents. I'll just elaborate when I come to the psycho-emotional thing. She had some issues with parents, with her husband, and generally women used to have issues with mother-in-law. In this case, she had issues with father-in-law. Mother-in-law was very supportive. And occasional health, profession, she's very happy. And social health, she socialized with people very happily. Financially, she's very sound, and spiritually also she's very good. So now coming to the psycho-emotional, see, holistic, we actually see the person, not the disease. Why this person ended up having such things. So when this was my first case, and I had a lot of learning. So when I started talking to her, so in general, like we used to do follow-up calls. Only then you get to know the actual history of their personal life. So this all opening up happened at the fifth or sixth call to her. Then I found out, like anything happens in her life, she always blames people and people around her. And she used to love herself very, very, very low. Being a woman, I can say, like, she dislikes being a woman. So now I'll just tell you the story. This girl, she has a brother, okay, and she lives in a nuclear family: father, mother, herself, and brother. So since childhood, her father and mother, they used to protect her since she's a girl child. And she was always denied whatever her brother was getting, but she was always denied. Say for example, she has to go to school and come back home. She is not allowed to go out with her friends. She cannot dress up the way she wants. She cannot be away from home late nights. So all these things. So since childhood, she had that kind of aversion. So she started giving a kind of command to the brain that, oh my god, I could have been a man more than being a woman. I could have enjoyed all the privileges what my brother is enjoying. This is the first trigger. And the second thing is, like, the moment she attended her puberty, in this Brahmin culture, those 3 days of the menstrual cycle, they are not allowed to touch any of the things at home. So literally they'll be treated like an untouchable. Okay, they shouldn't touch anything, and even people around them will not touch them. So this girl, what she felt is like, she disliked being a woman, and above all, she felt like, oh my god, why this health cycle is coming every month regularly. So she don't want to have the cycle regularly, so that she can enjoy her life. So she kept on giving this command also. And she was very depressed. She couldn't voice out her feeling. Nobody was there to listen. And she had this problem with the parents. Because of that, she had some hatred. And after that, she got married, and now she's blessed with a kid anyway. She joined me when she had a kid of 3-year-old. But she underwent lots and lots of struggle to get pregnant. She almost underwent some 7 years of treatment, and then she got a kid. So what I'm trying to say is, this girl presented with more testosterone level, a more insulin level, and she hardly got a cycle. So everything was connected with her emotion. She was the one who gave that command to the brain: let me not menstruate every month. If I menstruate, I've been still more denied so many things, so let me not. And she always felt like, being a woman, she's not able to achieve like a man. So it took so much of time for me to make her understand, and then I ended up giving all these holistic tools to her, so that it helped her to come out of it. So first thing is, like, I need to make her understand that anything happens in your life, you are responsible, not the people around you. So I need to make her understand the acceptance part. And then I need to explain her, see, your parents were protective because you are a girl child. They just showed their responsibility. Now imagine you have a kid now. Will you allow him to go then and there wherever he likes? She don't know. If you can deny for a boy, why can't they deny for a girl? Then I need to make her understand. Lot of counseling happened. Then she started forgiving, and then I started giving her affirmations regarding whatever the issue she's having in her body. So what happened is, like, I always make my clients to take the blood reports, and then they used to I asked them to visit the gynec. I generally advise them to take the tablet for the cycle to happen, because since this client shouldn't get their cycle for past 3 to 4 months, so I asked her to visit a gynec. So the gynec told she has to take medicine for 3 months. I told, you are going to do it for only 2 months, and third month we are going to completely out of medication, and you're going to get your cycle just with affirmation. And with God's help, everything worked wonder, and she got a cycle without any medication. So this is case number 1. And next case, I'll just quickly go go through.
Revati, before you go to the next case, I would ask you to stop here, because we are going to continue this in the next session, probably. Okay.
Right.
If you want to conclude the previous session, we can conclude the discussion so that we can stop the live.
Okay. So the thing is, like, there are a lot of things beyond diet, beyond exercise, beyond lifestyle. Our thoughts, our emotions, and with what kind of energy we are maintaining, that decides our health. So that's what we learn through holistic training program. That's what we are trying to educate people around us. That's how we do it. So we don't take single consultation. We do it as a 3 months program, so that they understand, because it requires a lot of time to make them understand, and to especially to understand them from the client perspective. Even we need time. So this is how we do. Okay, so emotions plays a very dominant role. The thoughts plays a very dominant role when it comes to any kind of disease or discomfort in the body. Right? So Dani, you want me to stop the live, or we'll do with the Q&A?
Probably we can stop the live and go with the Q&A.